Your Creative Push, episode 152.
You just make things, and by making things you get familiar with the tools, then you can do anything. That's the logic behind it for me.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngman Brown, and my guest today is Jan, aka Speo. Speo is an upcoming producer hailing from Austria, focusing on bass-heavy, funky, chill, and melodic electronic music. And Jan, man, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I was wondering if you could maybe start out by telling us a little bit about your background, how you got into music, and how you got to the point you're at today.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure. I started out like 5-6 years ago from sheer boredom, making music in my bedroom. And I've basically gone from there since. I've always spent a lot of time on the computer, playing games and doing other stuff. And right now I'm studying computer science. You can kind of see a pattern there, I guess. But yeah, music's just been with me for like 6 years, and always just had fun doing whatever on the computer, trying to figure out new stuff, make stuff sound cool. That's pretty much what I like to do.
I love it. It's I can relate. I went to school for computer science as well, and basically anything you can, whether it's like video editing or music, or I can just see it all as like kind of like these puzzles that you kind of put together, and especially if it's something that's involved with an interest that you've had kind of all your life, it's really cool whenever you're able to create it. What was it like when you created your first? Well, let me ask that, I guess. Was there like a first song or like a first like, I don't want to say masterpiece, but a first thing where you're like, yes, this is it. Like, I actually have a talent at this thing, and here it is.
Well, that's actually a funny story. And when I was making that first track, it definitely felt like a masterpiece, but it probably sounded incredibly bad. But you're in that zone where everything's just, wow, this is perfect. And but that was actually using a software that I found somewhere lying around. I have a lot of siblings, so we have a lot of stuff that just gets like from Christmas presents and stuff. We have a lot of stuff lying around, and we had that software somewhere. I think my brother got it for Christmas once, and it was like a $30 software for making music, just some very low level stuff. But I found that and just started making music. And the first time I booted up that software, I remember I spent hours making like a little track, and it felt amazing. And I had all these possibilities, and it was like I was really hooked. And then the software crashed. So I didn't save. Like I was 14 years old. I didn't save anything until it's done. So yeah, it was gone. But that was brutal. The moment I decided to invest in professional software, or like semi-professional software for making music, because I couldn't stand crashing programs.
Oh, I've been there. I've been there with essays. I've been there with, college term papers. I've been there with, the podcast. I've lost an entire episode. Oh. With the podcast, it's a little bit easier though. Editing, it's like, it's pretty straightforward, and it's just like, but it's just the time investment, you know.
Yeah.
But were you able to recreate that? You know, we call it a master. I completely understand the idea of calling it a masterpiece because it's that thing that's like inside of you that you're able to get out.
Yeah.
Were you able to recreate it, or when you made it again, was it a almost better version?
Well, back then, like when you make something and you think it's awesome, you actually have no idea what you're doing. It's pretty random, so. I didn't even really know how to start the same thing again.
Right.
Because I really had no idea what I was doing. I didn't read any manual or something. It was just, this makes noise. Let's put that here. This makes another noise. Let's put that there. And the whole thing came together and it was like, cool, let's make a Facebook fan page for my first track. Like, that was kind of the next step then already. But it took me a while to notice that I sucked pretty bad.
Well, you don't suck now at all,
thanks.
because yeah. Because one of the most motivating things for me with this podcast is people that do exactly what you just said. Like, oh, this makes noise. Let's play. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that idea of just diving into it and going for it. So I really respect anybody that just does that. Just kind of dives in and plays and just sees what happens without too many expectations, because I think that's one of the things that holds a lot of people back, is that idea that maybe I will suck, but the idea of jumping in is inspirational for me. So from that point on, was it just like hit the ground running?
Well, what you said is actually like incredibly true. This kind of thing that you just get going, get right into it, and that's where the best things happen in my experience. So I try to this day, I try to keep my expectations low and just get into it, make something, anything. But like back then, I would say I stumbled for a long while, but I didn't really notice because it was so much fun just putting stuff together and making music and then sharing it and having people listen and comment. Like that took like 2 years until somebody actually listened. Like I was uploading for a long time until someone actually listened to a track. And I was writing to a blank Twitter feed. Like there were 0 followers, but I still tweeted because I had this idea like, yeah, you're going to share your music. And it took a while, but then it was like incredibly gratifying. But I also, like I said, I noticed that the music that I made like a year ago or maybe even a month ago, it was not exactly what, like the reality of the music didn't meet my image in my head of the track because it was so exciting to me. But the execution was kind of lackluster. Even right now, I'm not at a point where I say, if I have an idea, I can really faithfully put that into a real thing, put that into a real track. There's still stuff that happens along the way, like with the technicalities where I mess up or where I don't have kind of the full picture. But I also noticed that isn't really that relevant. As long as you're having fun and you're making something cool, it's gonna sound great. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a theme that keeps coming up on the podcast is, you know, just have fun during the process and then worry about all that other stuff like later. What I want to ask you is, how did you because you said it was like about 2 years where you kept uploading stuff. And I do think it's really important to just, you know, hit record and just put it out there and then just see what sticks. But after like 2 years, how did you keep going? Like, what was the motivation that kept you keep going to keep posting to a blank Twitter feed?
It's funny. I don't really remember. It's like the thing the thing that really kept me making music was just the kind of explorative theme in the studio. Like when I sat down in the studio, I mean my bedroom computer. Like I sat down and made music and it was just so much fun that I just kept going. And then I had all these tracks just lying around and I saw other people sharing their music. Obviously, that's also what got me into it in the first place. Like other people, successful people sharing their music. So I thought, you know, you have all these tracks, why not put them up? I think it was just kind of this dynamic that I had built in my head that it doesn't really matter that nobody listens. Like you're gonna just keep going. You're having fun making music and why not share this stuff?
Absolutely. It's the most important thing is that you're enjoying doing it, and you're right, it doesn't matter. I've made these like music videos that almost nobody has watched, yeah. But that it actually inspired me to make this podcast, because the feeling that I got from actually creating it and bringing it out into the universe was like the most fulfilling thing that I think I've experienced in my life. One of the most fulfilling things that I've experienced in my life. Yep. Enough to create this thing, to try to hope to motivate other people to create that thing.
Yeah, it doesn't like the gratification and validation that you get from an audience is great, but it shouldn't be the purpose of why you're making things in my mind. In my mind, the purpose of why you're creating and your whole kind of motivation should come from that creative spirit, that fun, basically. And it's funny nowadays, now that I think about it, nowadays that I do get quite a few people listening to my music, I kind of try to get back into that spirit that I was in maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when there was nobody listening and I was just doing whatever. That was like a really free kind of feeling, like exploring freely without having maybe some expectations or maybe some thoughts about label people that have certain expectations about my music and how I should do it, so that they will then sign it and share it to a broad audience that introduces some kind of pressure. So I try to go back to my happy place, so to speak, like 4 or 5 years ago, where nobody was listening and I was just messing around.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my next question, which is really interesting, was, now that you do have, a large following and you have people that are not only listening, but commenting and telling you like what they like, and you can kind of gauge what your fan base and your audience is digging. How do you then get back to that place, that happy place that you mentioned? Because I think that is a tough thing to do. How do you get back to that place?
Yeah, that's a good question. Because like you said, I really love all these comments, and it feels incredibly gratifying. But as you said, people have specific ideas, and most of them are not shy to call them out either. So there's a certain set of expectations that people then have for your music. And to me, that's always been kind of making the creative process harder. Because when I sit down to make a track, and I have this idea in my mind that it's got to be a track that pleases that group of people. And it's quite easy to get into this mode, like, hey, this track I made last month really took off. Let's make another one just like that. And I've never made a good track with that mindset. I can say that for sure. I've tried a lot, and I've spent a lot of time, and I deleted a whole lot of projects that were called "This Sounds Like Skrillex" or something. Because, well, if you try to emulate someone or something, you'll just end up with something that sounds, at best, slightly worse. So I always took the approach that you gotta make something new and just let things happen. So that's what I try to do now, because I had made these bad experiences with projects where I was like emulating other artists and things. Yeah, the audience does make things tougher, and I imagine it's one of the toughest things for any kind of artist to do, is to get to that happy place and almost ignore the audience that you have, that you're trying to, not impress, but that you're trying to entertain, that you're trying to bring something to, and to almost ignore them during the creative process so that you can give them something. It's funny because, like, at the same time, I think it's a huge inspiration to know that there are people waiting for your next track or waiting for your next creative work that can really push you. But like at the same time, it can push you into a corner where you feel like you have to create a certain style of thing, a certain style of track. So I do try to blend out these expectations completely when I make music.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword for sure. I love that analogy of, they push you, but they could push you into a corner and almost, typecast you.
Yeah, exactly.
Are there any other resistances that you experience when you're trying to, maybe not during the creative process, but the actual process of, getting the work done? Do you have any things that hold you back on a daily basis?
Well, yeah, obviously there's like time and energy constraints. If you work, or I'm a computer science student at university, it's not that much work, but there's some. So you're obviously going to have to kind of structure your day a little. Yeah, and that often got in the way of making music or making other things. When you have a kind of a tight schedule for your day, I think you're less likely to just mess around. And if you do make something, you try to be very structured and efficient about it. And if I try to be structured and efficient about making music, I end up making very bad sounding music. So there's kind of that's a problem there. So I always enjoy holidays and stuff where I can just go into my day without that struggle of you only have half an hour. You have to make something. Otherwise, you have nothing at the end of the week. That's always a mindset that messes with my creative process big time.
What's your plan with your computer science degree when you graduate? Do you plan on doing the music thing? You plan on doing something else?
That's a great question. I'm not sure myself. I've been kind of elongating my studies, if you can say that. It's just I've spread my my workload over an additional year so that I have more time to make music and other content and see what kind of things I like. But right now, I'm not sure where everything will end up going. I think I want to, or I know I want to stay in music, but maybe I'll go behind the scenes and do some signal processing things, like, writing algorithms for soft synths and that kind of thing. That interests me a lot.
What? You just blew my mind. So this topic just came up on Friday's episode where we were talking about when you get to the point like where you're at right now in your life, that young adults, I think it's a tough time to make a call for what you want to do for the rest of your life. And there's a lot of money, time, and pressure from a lot of different people. And it's a big kind of decision. And I really, really respect the fact that you are elongating, as you say, the process to really figure out what you want to do, and taking both things into mind, whether it's like whether you want to go like a kind of traditional route, even though the algorithm thing doesn't seem too traditional, or the music thing. And I really appreciate you giving them both, kind of an equal try. Yeah,
that's what I try to do. And right now I feel pretty great. Like, studies are going okay, and music is going great. So right now I feel pretty fine.
Perfect, man. Keep going with it, And either way, I really hope that if you go the other way, that the music continues to be, at least a hobby, that you continue to put stuff out there, because it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely. I don't plan on stopping music basically ever.
Good. I'm glad we agree. Do you have like a worst or a best like kind of creative moment that you could talk about?
There was one particularly bad moment, though moment is probably not the word, because it was like half a year, like 1.5 years ago. I was not in a place where I would say like everything's going great, like I did just 2 minutes ago. Then I was kind of in a rut. I had, I was studying, but back then I did the whole program. So it's like a full-time studying deal. And I had some other, kind of, responsibilities on the side. I ended up not making as much music as I could. I had a little free time, but in that free time, I was usually just sitting around doing nothing. And then it got even worse when I realized that I just sat around doing nothing for like 2 hours while I could have been making music. And then now the rest of the week, I can't make music. And I ended up beating myself up pretty bad and really not putting anything out there. You can also see that in my music releases. There's like half a year of nothing. That was that time. Yeah, that didn't feel that great. And I think I was not in a healthy place in my mind, and also not physically. Yeah, but we can get into that a little bit. I think, like, if I think back to that time, I ate pretty badly and I didn't work out at all. Right now, I kind of keep track of my eating habits at least a little bit, and I do work out and I feel a lot better. And I actually, nowadays, when I think about it, I attribute that good feeling that I have right now. I think that's due to the fact that I'm physically more active than I was like 1.5 years ago, when there was that stretch where I really didn't create anything at all and just let all that pressure from the outside get the better of me. It's not really that great of a bad moment, I think, but it was that time that really didn't feel any good.
Yeah, well, I think you say it's not that great, but I think it's one of the most relatable bad moments that I think everybody has had or is having right now in their lives. I am having one of those kind of moments right now because I'm so busy that I don't have time to take care of myself physically, and also eat well. Thank God for my wife, because she really helps me out with eating better. But dude, taking care of yourself, taking care of your body is like a machine, and to make yourself put good fuel into it, and then to just have a short jog or a power walk or anything like that, just to get your body moving, puts you in a completely different mindset for your entire day, week, month, and it affects everything you do. It puts you in a better mood, and it makes you be more motivated to just be a better human being and create more art. And then it makes your art so much better, whatever your art is. It's so important, and I think it's quickly overlooked because it's the first thing that you kind of throw away when you don't have time.
Yeah.
And I am so guilty of it. Like I can't, like I'm definitely preaching to the choir, but like it's really important to try to get outside, try to even just take a walk out in nature. It's like double power there, because then you're outside, and being outside is so helpful too.
Absolutely. And I have this mindset which really helped me out, that it doesn't matter how much you do or how intense you work out or how long you go and take a walk. It's just important that you do it every day. Like that's kind of my mindset. So I end up going outside for 5 minutes and then saying, great, you worked out today. But with that kind of mindset, it really helped me like be consistent. And like you said, it's a huge deal. Like I didn't start making music again after half a year before I started working out and going outside more and eating healthier. Then the music came back in, and it was better than before. Definitely. It
makes you a superhuman.
Yeah.
I think I've interviewed a lot of people now, and a lot of people have had long lulls, time off from their art, more than a year and a half, 10 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
For me, I had a 2-year lull, and a lot of that has to do with just being in a better mindset. And, it's one thing to listen to podcasts and get motivated, but it's another thing to, listen to podcasts while you're out walking, jogging, and then come back inside refreshed and ready to go and do whatever it is that you want to do. It's a completely different thing. So you actually have to get off your ass, you have to get off your ass and do stuff. It's a cycle,
Absolutely. Yeah. And it just kind of with this empowered feeling from being a healthy human being, you're making better music or you're making better art. And with this better art, you get more self-confident. And this way you kind of work yourself up. You have this feedback loop, this positive feedback loop that pushes you upwards.
Absolutely. And it's the antithesis of that negative feedback loop that you're talking about,
Exactly.
where you realize that you just sat around for 2 hours, and then you're mad at yourself and you're beating yourself up for sitting around for 2 hours, and then you continue to sit around for 2 hours because you're like, what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
I think a lot of people get into that loop, even if it's not like physical activity, just with, I haven't done art I haven't done music, I haven't done whatever it is for 3 years. What's the point? Like, I just had this huge gap. Why even start now? But today's the day. You got to start now.
Yeah, exactly. And that's also where that point comes in, that consistency beats intensity in my mind. Because if you do something for 5 minutes every day, then you're a person who does something daily, and you see yourself as this person. Like for me, it's like when I do music for like half an hour every day, which is manageable, then I see myself as a person creating music. And that way I won't just stop for 3 hours when I have free time. I won't sit around. I will do music because I do that every day. That's kind of my mindset there. And I think about that from time to time, and I try to keep this up, being consistent about the things that make me happy and the things that I want to do, to beat all this kind of lazy and procrastinating impulses that I do have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes from taking that first step. You go from, dipping your toes, starting as a dabbler, to becoming like an amateur, to becoming like a professional, and it's a very quick transition if you can get into that mindset. And it's all it is mindset. It's just deciding that you want to be that, and just continuing, like you said, consistency beats intensity. I love that, dude. It's all about doing it every single day. And like we were talking about before, it's all about just losing yourself and having fun. There's no better like meaning for life, in my opinion.
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So being a student, and I know there's a lot of students that listen, and you talked about it a little bit already with just balancing your time, but how do you balance your time on a daily basis with your studies and then your music as well?
Well, like I said, I spread out my workload. So my week is kind of, it's like other people would probably envy me for my week. because I have like 2 days during the week that I have completely off, additional to the weekend. I don't need to go to a campus, and I need to get some stuff done, of course, but saving that time of going outside and, I do go outside, but not on campus.
Gotcha.
So I actually, I think like if I now say like I do a great job managing my time, it's because the task isn't that hard for me. What I do try to do, even on days where like I spend maybe 10 hours on campus and I get back and I'm tired in the evening, I do try to make anything. So no expectations, no time kind of. I don't say like you have to make music for an hour right now, but I just say you start up your program and you make something. And maybe you continue working on a project that you have, or maybe you start something new, even though you have a project, but you don't feel like going into it. And I just do something, I just make something. And if I can make something in like quarter of an hour, then I stop. Then it says, oh, fine, I'm tired. I'm going to go eat something and then play video games all night. No, I'm going to go sleeping or something. But like I try to make something every day. And that way I can keep up this kind of creative spirit.
Yeah, going back to that consistency that we were talking about before, it's like, all right, I filled my quota today. Like, even though like the rest of my life took up the biggest percentage of my time, I still found time to do that. It's super motivating to be able to put that little piece of work into it.
Exactly. And it's
really powerful.
It's about like a time frame. So I set aside half an hour every day. I don't really do that. I rather just make sure that I made something.
Yeah, super powerful, man. Do you have a greatest inspiration, or even a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you draw inspiration from?
I do listen to a lot of, not podcasts, but I look at a lot of videos that do a similar thing than you do. Though you do a great job with your podcast, and I'm definitely gonna listen to more episodes because there's really great stuff there.
Thanks, man.
But like, if I had to choose what the biggest inspiration that I've stumbled upon, it was the time that Bob Ross was on the Twitch stream marathon. Did you catch
what? No.
Did you catch that?
No.
That was amazing.
No, I have to.
There was a marathon of Bob Ross. There was all the episodes. You know Bob Ross, the painter guy.
Yeah, of course. The Happy Clouds, man.
There was a marathon where they aired all of the episodes non-stop for like 2 weeks. And I watched a lot of those episodes. Like you'd have an hour and you just sit down and watch Bob Ross, because the guy is just, well, you know the guy. He's something else. And there's this quote. I actually wrote it. I wrote it down. I have it here, where he said, "Believe in yourself. Then it's just about getting familiar with the tools, and you can do anything." And that kind of stuck with me the first time I heard him say that, because it's just so powerful. This idea that you just have to believe in your ideas and yourself. And the rest is just getting familiar with tools. And then you're basically omnipotent. You can make anything. I think that's just really strong.
It's so strong. And it's so true too, though. Like, you can literally do anything. Like, anybody listening right now, you can literally do anything you want. You might not be the best at it at first, but you can get really, really good at it. Yeah. Like, and all it takes is time. I'm not a podcaster, but I decided that I was going to podcast,
Yeah.
Jan, you weren't a musician before you were a musician, and you just started having fun. You just dove in, like we were talking about before. It's all about that, just diving in and going for it, and then just putting that consistency in every day.
Yeah. And people often I run a tutorial channel for music production, and people often ask, how did you get good, or how do I get better? And that's where this Bob Ross idea comes in for me. It's, you just make things, and by making things you get familiar with the tools, and then you can do anything. That's the logic behind it for me. You don't need to check out XYZ course on the internet. You just need to create something, and you'll get more familiar with the tools. You get more efficient in your work. But it's not about this efficiency. It's about the idea. It's about diving into it without expectations, making something. And in the process, you'll automatically just pick up on skills and you'll get better.
For sure. But speaking of tutorials, talk about Speo TV.
Yeah, you can on youtube.com/SpeoTV. There's Reason tutorials. So Reason is the program that I use to make music. I made a lot of tutorials to this day. Like, I started maybe 3 years ago And once again, I don't really know why I started. I just thought, hey, this sounds kind of cool. Let's make a video on why this sounds cool. And so other people can make that kind of cool sound as well. Nowadays, I look back at the first kind of tutorials and they weren't really helpful, but hopefully I stepped up my game a little bit. And I get a kind of nicely consistent number of listeners and watchers on the tutorial channel as well nowadays, which is really nice.
Perfect, man. YouTube.com/SpeoTV. Dude, this has been awesome. This has been really fun. And I love your just attitude about music and life and creativity. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Of course, man. But we can't let you go without the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach to the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today and just give them your best words of advice and really push them to pursue their creative passions.
All right. Look, if you have just the slightest drive to make something, to create something, then act on that impulse. Just go for it. And it doesn't matter if you don't have the most expensive tools or if you maybe even are using kind of a demo version of a program or maybe even a cracked version. I don't support cracking, by the way, but it doesn't matter. If you have this impulse to make something, then act on it. And if you enjoy yourself, then do it a lot. And when you do it a lot, you'll notice you'll get better and better. And at some point, people will want to pay for the stuff that you do. And it'll just all go from there. So act on that impulse, on that creative impulse, and make something.
That creative impulse is, I don't want to say it's rare, but I think it's rarely grabbed onto. Yeah. So if you get that, I think it's like one of the coolest things in life is to get that impulse to and to just grab onto it and to go for it is one of the most rewarding experiences that you can experience. And I think that you won't even realize why until you just grab on and just dive in. So, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show today and for giving us that push, man.
Thanks for having me. It was a great experience.
Absolutely. You can find Jan and Speo on SoundCloud, YouTube, Bandcamp, Twitter, Facebook, but mostly YouTube and Twitter as Speo Music. SPEOMUSIC.
That's it.
Thanks again, man.
Thanks so much. It was a pleasure.
Oh, my thank you to Jan for coming on the show. And guys, it's come up a lot recently, this idea of building an audience, because that's the whole idea, right? But then once you can get people to sign on to this idea that you've created or to latch on to your worldview or your unique ideas, and they're totally digging it and they're talking to you about it, they're sending you emails and commenting, it's almost like you've got a problem now. Because you've got these new voices in your head and an actual, literal, tangible audience that is looking for your next thing. But like Speo said, it's amazing to get pushed by your audience. And you know I love that push analogy. But it's also scary to get pushed into the corner, like he said. You have to get back to that happy place where you had 0 followers and it was just you and your headphones and just fun, where your only worry was your $30 software crashing on you, or your paint's drying out, or your hands cramping from writing too much or typing too much, where it's just you and your creativity. And that's like really the whole point of this podcast. And I think that's why it's so much fun during this interview, because Jan still has that spirit totally. He's still got it down where he can get back to that place that we're all trying to get to, the origin, of our creativity, the origin of our creative endeavor, where we felt like kids playing, and losing track of time. So let's get back there this week. Dive into your creative pursuit. Don't think about anything else and just see what comes out the other end. But that is all I've got for you today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And we will be here for you on Wednesday if you need the push again. And we are going to leave you with Nova by Speo to get you into your work. Go get some amazing stuff done, and we will see you next time. I love you all. Bye. This is usually the part of the podcast where I tell you how to subscribe to the podcast, but unfortunately, Jan, you told me about the Bob Ross Twitch stream. I went there. I wasted an hour of my life. No, I wouldn't say it's a waste of an hour of my life, but now I'm going to even give the link out to the listeners, which is a kind of a huge distraction, but it's kind of inspirational too. It's really funny. I went on there. There's a lot of people on the chat room too as these episodes are streaming, and people reacting to when he puts like a yellow into the water of the waves, and everyone's like, "Yellow, what are you doing? What are you doing, Bob?" And then he like does it perfectly where he makes it into a wave, and everyone's like, "Yeah, saved it, Bob, saved it." It's really interesting to see. Don't get lost too much into it unless it really inspires you. Keep doing your own work, but go check it out. The link's up there, yourcreativepush.com/152. Check it out, but make sure you come back to the real world and do your own work. Bye.